what about right now? You know, what are we supposed to be doing right now? You know, Yeshua said something years and years ago, and he said this. He said, you are not of the world. You're in the world, but you're not to be of the world. He said we're ambassadors. We're pilgrims. We're having a time on this earth. So what are we here to do? You know, that's the thing I started thinking about. What are we here to do now to get to that future thing, things that Miles talked about that were so phenomenal. You know, so phenomenal. No more hospitals, no more disease, you know, no more police stations, no more, you know, parties, political parties, all of these things that it's hard for us to even imagine, but how do we get there? And that's what I started thinking about. You know, and you're here, we're here right now, and what we're all doing is transcending lower energies. You know, we're transcending lower energies and habits, corporate habits that have kept us enslaved into this illusion that we call, you know, earth. And, you know, the result is most of us have been living exclusively in ego, you know, instead of spirit. And one key is to become aware of the ego's pulls on us. And that's what I wanted to talk about. We've had so much information. Nobody has missed the floods in Texas, I'm sure. And how it's been just inundating the TV over and over and over again. We're going to talk a little bit about that and what that does to us. But one key is to be aware of ego's habits and how they take us away from living inspired. How many of us want to be inspired all the time? We don't want to just be going in and out of inspiration, but we want to walk. You know, it says we abide in the heavenlies. That's what Scripture said. In other words, we're always up there in high dimensions, high dimensional places. We're always attached. It said you now have the mind of divinity. We have it. It's just that there's so many outside influences, so many collective consciousness that we've been, you know, have habits of and connected to that sometimes we get in and out of that. We feel it. So most of the society has been raised and persuaded to believe the illusions of ego and how horrible things are and how the world's going to hell in a handbag. I mean, we hear that, and I have friends that talk about that. So we've been firmly grounded in the message to promote the ideas of the importance of ego and all its ideas in our society. That's habits, its beliefs, its paradigms, its opinions. Think of some of the opinions you have right now. You think they're your own, but they're not your own. You know, we are tapped into a collective consciousness. You know, whenever the presidential race or any of the politics, I always say the consciousness draws what is needed at the time in. The Bible says it this way: God puts up leadership and God takes it down. Hello, God. We're drawing into our reality the type of leadership we need to go to the next step of evolution, whatever that may be. And I'm not getting into politics, but I'm just saying that. But I want to read this. This is by Carl Jung. Listen to this. For all our insight, obstinate habits do not disappear until replaced by other habits. No amount of confession, no amount of explaining can make the crooked path grow straight. It must be trained upon the trellis by the gardener's art. So what it's saying is we are here on this earth. This is our trellis. This is where our training ground is. This is where we are being disciples. And what does a disciple mean? The disciples of Yeshua were disciplined. They were learning to be disciplined in the arts, the metaphysical arts like energy and how we're creating, what Miles is teaching on Wednesday night, how to create a reality that we want, how to manifest. How many of you are seeing manifestations quicker than ever before? I mean, you just kind of think of something and it starts coming in. Something Larry told me that was really interesting this morning is that Louise Hay died on 2 years to the date, on the date that Wayne Dyer died. Mm-hmm. Now, do we look at that and think that that is, I mean, you know, he gave her, I mean, he was always giving her credit for the publishing company and all that he had done for her. So anyway, we need to begin to look at these things because there's messages in them for us. But anyway, so this world is our trellis. It's our training ground. It's our opportunity to release ourselves from that collective consciousness. It's our opportunity to release ourselves from the beliefs that our family has given us for generation after generation. The Swami Satchidananda believed that the ego part, and he called them 2 words. He called it heart and head, and we've talked so much about the heart, you know, the Heart Math Institute in California and Texas. But he said there's 2 things. The heart is the spirit and the head is the ego. And we're inspired when we act from our hearts. And that's really what we've been talking about, isn't it? Is living from this love in our heart instead of living from consciousness. And the heart's made up of two words. It's he and art. His art makes up the heart. And the head is two words. It's he and at. And what makes us from the head is reminding us that our ego is an advertisement. And what our ego always wants is attention. And that's when we're striving for that attention. Is it our heart or our ego that's really driving us? It's our ego. It wants recognition. And then he asks a question, why is it lovers call each other sweethearts instead of let me see, how about that? Sweet heads. Sweethearts instead of sweet heads. Because it's there we live, isn't it? It's there we really are inspired. And what takes us out of that? That's the thing that we ask today. You know, Miles is talking about all the wonderful things that are coming, but how do we stay solid in a world that looks like it's going out of balance, in a world that looks like everything is coming to the surface? And I started examining that this week, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. So he told us not to despise our head, but to look back and allow our hearts and our feelings to guide us. And how many of us are thinking now? Somebody told me recently they had this feeling in their gut that they were to do something, and they went ahead and did it. I can't remember. It was somebody here. And then it, turned out not so good because they didn't listen to that inner voice. And I think that's what we're learning to do, is listen to that inner voice, because that inner voice is the voice of spirit. Here's the head. And I was talking to somebody this morning, and they were talking about the two voices. One saying positive things within them, and the other saying negative things within them. And we all have that. Remember Eckhart Tolle's, remember his story, when in the middle of the night he was saying, you need to kill yourself. And he said, whose voice is that? And once he began to discern that there was two voices within him, he had like a magnificent transformation. And that's what we're all learning. So I want to look at some of the things that have developed, and some of the things this week that I was thinking about that really kind of take us away. And one is the media. And that's what I really want to talk about today. How do we still stay sane in a media-driven society? Because we really are. Think of the years ago before the media was a force in our lives, and you heard news about your own village. You heard about babies being born, or maybe who died, or who got in an accident. But you also heard about all the things that were going on in the village. Maybe you heard about natural disasters and things like that. But you weren't inundated all the time the way we are today by the media. On occasions, you came to somebody in the community that had something going on. But in those days, people's daily lives were consumed by their families and their work and their interactions. They weren't so consumed by the media. Where do you go that everybody's not on their cell phone right now? I mean, they're on Facebook every minute, they're on Twitter, whatever it is. They're not talking. They're talking on media right now. Our world as we know it has changed. Our world as we know it is not the same, and so we're looking for tools to really be able to function in this world. So in those days, people's daily lives were work and interaction with their family. And the information, about what was happening in your little town or your little village. I remember, years ago when people went to service, to even contact their loved ones in the service took weeks for the letters to get there. We have instantaneous communication right now. So very different from that day. Our news media has specially trained people to go around the globe and find out all the sad things that are happening for you. Every horrific thing that's happening, they have special agents out there that are looking for you so they can come back and report all that to you. Because guess what? That's what sells. I don't know about your TV. My computer, yes, but my TV does not have a channel of good news. Does yours? No, it doesn't. What we're inundated is all this bad news. No matter where we are, you can be in an airport. You can be standing in a line in the bank. You can be in a grocery store. You can be in a hospital. You go in a hospital and they have the televisions on. You cannot get away from it. You are being inundated. It is a plan, I'm telling you. And on your portable devices we carry. If somebody puts on the Facebook, in 2 seconds you know it. And they could be in Australia or on China. It doesn't matter. We're connected now. So how do we get from here to what Miles was talking about last week? How do we begin to function in a world that the majority of people are still being functioned from ego, from the illusion of the world going to hell in a handbag? Where are we, and how do we stand up to these things, and how do we bring in a different reality? You know, we're able to tune in all the reports into the, in a minute, what happens to you? You feel bad. How did you feel when you heard about that, all that in Texas? You feel bad. Well, how about when they start having a hurricane and one house is flooded or one house goes down and they keep playing that over and over? Ever notice that?
Mm-hmm.
They don't, you know, go to the next step and say, now these people, you know, they dried out and this is happening, but they keep playing that same story over and over. You see the same house flooded for 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. So we're trying to do something to walk through these situations. And this is what I love, what I've heard so many times. To feel good is to feel God.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel good, you feel divinity.
Mm-hmm.
When you're feeling bad, you're out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
You're out of balance. And when we allow ourselves to feel good, it raises the energy of everything around us. It's just like that little stone in the pond. It changes everything around us. So if there's a flood and we keep getting that same thing over and over again, you know, it just keeps consolidating that within your consciousness too. The more you watch that, the more it's consolidating that in your consciousness. So we get continued video loops over and over. And or a suicide bomber or anything that's happened. Think back, how many times did you see those buildings go down? How many times in your lifetime you think you've seen those buildings go down? First of all, they played it over and over and over in the media for days, probably months.
Mm-hmm.
And now they still, when they go back to that, we're still seeing those buildings go down. And what does that do? It's just like going back to our story. It revives all the energetic energies within every cell in our body to go back and relive all of that, to really consolidate it within our consciousness, to bring us more into awareness of that. So a woman, let me see where I am here, stabs her husband and drowns her children anywhere in the country, and you're going to hear about it on 11 o'clock news. I don't care where it's happening in the country, you're going to hear about it if you're watching the news. And all the details from the eyewitness reports, interviewing, everybody that's willing to talk about it, you're going to have them on the news, and they're going to keep talking about what happened, and about the woman and the children. And you and I are continually fed bad news, low vibrational energy reports for consumption, which means our mission is to convince us the world is out of balance, that the world is evil, that the world is bad, that the world is dangerous. And how many of us feel that way? If we took a survey on the street right now, went out there and said, how many of you feel that the world is getting worse all the time? What do you think a major consensus, not enlightened people, but the major consensus would be?
That it is.
Yeah, that's,
That the world is getting, we look at politics, we look at pharmaceuticals, we look at schools, we look at bombings, we look at, but guess what? Just by happenstance, somebody sent me a video last week on statistics that the world is not getting worse, and I'm going to go through that. The world is getting better. Statistically, the world is getting better. But how many of us get those reports? So every thing in the media is trying to tell us that we live in an unsafe universe, that you are really on shaky ground all the time, that you're not safe, that the universe doesn't have your back. But let me tell you, I'm going to go through some of those things today. The key is to become aware when we're giving attention to uninspired reports, that's just to keep ourselves informed. And that's what we say. And I'm not saying you shouldn't watch the news. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you shouldn't look at all those things. I'm saying, how do we deal with them when they come into our space? How do we deal with them? And that's what I want to talk about a little bit. So we can see these reports, and we call them news, is really giving us a dose of low energy. And guess what? It's addictive. That's another thing about low energy and bad news. When I looked it up on the internet, it's very addictive. To some people, I'm not saying to enlightened people, I'm saying to the general public, it's addictive. So when we watch or listen to these messages, we can check our heart and ask ourselves, how do we feel? You know, I really don't watch the news, but I know many people do, but how does it make you feel? You know, if I continue to stay connected to these energies, will I feel good or bad? And I think that's a good thing for us to ask any place we go. If we stay connected to those energies, how do we feel? Do we feel good or do we feel bad? And if we can remember that feeling good is feeling God, and that's scriptural, and I'm going to read you something in a minute that says that. And don't forget, there are tons of cable news channels that need to fill up 24 hours of stuff. So they're going to play the same things over and over again. If there's an accident, whatever it is, they're going to play that. So ask yourself, is this meant to be from your source? And is this for your well-being? So how do we deal with that? Because I know even when I turn on my AOL in the morning, it has what every politician says, it has what all the things are saying. You're going to get the information. So how do we do it? So I'm not saying we have to be uninformed or in a state of blissful ignorance. Rather, the key to staying connected is that awareness of how it makes you feel. That awareness of what you're plugging into. Even I heard somebody talking about Facebook and the negative things that people put up in Facebook. And one thing I was going to say is this. If your consciousness is like that, you will draw that information in. If your consciousness is to positive things, you're going to find those in the internet. You're going to find those coming into your Facebook. Whatever you believe, you will prove. If you believe the world is wrong, you can prove the world is bad and wrong. If you don't, you won't. So there's videos and there's ways of, 97 reasons. I'm going to give you 97 reasons, but I'm not going to give them all to you. Why the world is getting better. This is one of the videos. There was 25 videos, 30 videos of why the world is getting better, and this is one of the reasons. Poverty has decreased 20% in the last 10 years. Poverty has decreased. 10% of the world's forests are now protected. So that means the size of India, our forest land, is now protected in this state. Air travel has fallen in price, half price since 1970. And the minimum wage has gone up. Middle class has tripled since 1971. Global extreme poverty has been cut in half since 1990. Where do we hear these things? I mean, the world is changing, and we need to put our energy and our focus on those things that are really bringing us into this new age. The oil spill in the Gulf, they say, has been cleaned up, and they say that fish are clean. I was looking that up now. The fish are safer to eat. Less oil spills than ever before in the history. Growth rate of renewable energy sets records every year. Solar panels are cheaper than ever before. So we're going into these ages where we're looking into solar. We're looking into those ways that are going to change our way of living, that are grounding us. What Roger and I were talking about this morning. How many of you felt through this eclipse that the energies have been so erratic and so powerful that you could just feel inside your body those energies? Yes. How many of you felt that?
Oh,
just really
yeah.
felt it.
I was crawling, my skin was crawling.
Well, we're the transmuters of that, though. And what Roger was saying was so beautiful this morning, because we are the ones that are allowing those energies to come through, and we're grounding them on Mother Earth. When we don't stay grounded, where we're not connected to the earth, when we're not laying on the beach, laying in the grass, connecting our feet to the earth. But when we do that, and we begin to be those conduits that all of these energies can be anchored into the earth, that's what we're here for. And those are the things that we're really learning. These are the tools that we're learning to really function in a world that is all around us. So the cost has dropped 75% since 2008 on all the solar panels. They have invented a way to draw energy from salt water right now. So we're going to be, and Carrie Ellis does all of the Keshe things, and they're getting energy out of all sorts of things right now. These are the things that we need to be looking up. We need to be really putting our energy on, because as we put our attention on those things, those are the things we're going to see manifest and grow in our world. The U.S. to reduce carbon emissions 32% over the next 25 years. The bald eagle population has increased since 1960. How about that? We thought we were going to be out of bald eagles, and instead they've increased. The humpback whale in North Pacific has grown the population over 20,000 since 1960. So the whales are coming back. Something's happening on planet Earth, and it's all good. If we stay just connected to the media, just connected to what they're saying, we're not going to see what's right in front of us. We're here to energize those things that are really coming to pass. Asiatic lions have beaten their extinction, and there's more of them. U.S. homeless has dropped 11% since 2007. Virginia has no longer any homeless veterans. How about that? They cured that in Virginia. They have no more homeless veterans. 84% of people can read, as opposed to 10% in 1950. How about that? So we're seeing a population that's becoming, and what does it say? It says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, but we're having people that are able to get the knowledge now, able to understand. IQs have gone up 24 points worldwide. Amazing. There's 69 democracies in 1990 in the world, and today there's 125 democracies. That means 50% of the population in the world now lives in a democracy. What do we hear about? We hear about the wars. We hear about the tribal things. We hear about other things. We're not hearing about this. In 20 years, the worldwide food production has risen 11%. China is developing a $1 million peace and development fund to support the UN. So here's countries that are coming in to begin to support peace and harmony. You know, this is the good news. This is what it's all about, is hearing these things that are really taking us to the next level of consciousness. Overpopulation has slowed down since 1990. And sanitation has improved for billions of people around the world. The life expectancy is up 50% since 1950. You know, there's going to be more people that live to be 100 than ever in the history, not ever in the history, because I know years ago they did live, you know, thousands of years. But since we've been a civilized country and world, we're going to have more and more of 100-year-olds. We're getting taller because of good nutrition. We're getting stronger. We're getting faster. How about the 4-minute mile? When nobody had gone through the 4-minute mile till that one guy went through, and once he went through, what happened? The rest of the population is overcoming that and doing more. That's what you and I are doing. We're the ones that are out there. We're running that 4-minute mile. We're going through those barriers. And as we do, we're opening portals for others to follow behind us. So what we do in this world is important. What you watch, what you listen to, what you put your energy on. You're the creators. We're the creators of the new earth, the new world, the new paradigms, the new beliefs. We're the ones. And so when we begin to focus on those kind of things, we're making a change. Just by shifting your consciousness to look on the positive. Just by reading this, I changed something within inside of me. Giving it to you in an energetic form is changing something inside of you. Cancer death rates are decreased 22% from 1991 to 2008. We don't see that. What we see are all these pink things on, let's fight breast cancer. Anything we fight, what do? We empower.
Of course.
We empower. There's ear plants that can go in, and now deaf people can hear. Last year, this was the safest aviation year since the 1960s. Medical marijuana is legal in 24 states now and Washington, D.C. And that means people with chronic pain, little kids with seizures, are now being taken care of instead of taking all those pain pills and all of those pills that destroy everything else in their body. So we're seeing changes happen in the world. 10 million more dogs in homes than ever before since 2000. I know Pam would like that. She's got 6. Yeah. Violent crimes are down 71% in the U.S. Last decade, percentage of violent deaths plummeted. Less than 100 years, deaths lies 100 years. NASA is going to Mars by 1940. And there's an anti-aging gene solution that they're bringing out. So we're seeing things change. Same-sex marriages are legal now in many states. In 29 countries, in fact. U.S. Supreme Court has 3 female judges now. And 66% of consumers buy environmental products. So can you see? What we're getting on the media is not the truth. What the media is doing is continue to build the illusion that we live in an unsafe universe. What if you lived in a safe universe?
There would be no worries.
What? Well, what if that is true and that we do live in a safe universe? A universe that has our backs. A universe, the Bible says it this way, all things are working. And working is a verb. So it may not look like it at the time, but all things are working and turning for your highest good, no matter what it is. Your soul is bringing those things in right now to help you with growth, because your soul knows more than what your mind knows the growth that you need in your life. Does it always feel good? No. But can we see it from a higher perspective and believe it? And I think that is one of the keys. What if, and that's what Albert Einstein said, one of the most important things that any of us can ever understand is that we live in a safe universe. A universe that has purpose. A universe that's right on time. A universe that no matter what it looks like, it's turning for the evolution of humanity. A universe that's working all the details out in your life, even if it doesn't feel like that, even if it doesn't feel good. And my life, even if it doesn't feel good. It's working something out for us. A universe that brought you here right on time. For you to experience this media and be able to withdraw your energy and put your energy in another direction. To further that new earth and further the plan of humanity. You know, we really are manipulators of energy. We're the ones that can take that light. I talked about light a few weeks ago and how powerful that is. That is really a tool that we can use. As we are those light beings, we can send light. You know, there's no time with that. We can send light. We can put people in light. We can send light to places in our own bodies. There's so much that light is such a tool. I'm going to speak on it again because I've had some dreams about it. It's so powerful. So you can see that the media is blocking the truth, that things are getting better. How does that make you feel if you thought the world's getting better? How do you feel right now that everything's getting better? Doesn't that make you feel happy and glad? That's when you're inspired. Those are the things that make you inspired. So the key is to become aware of what you allow into your space. When you're online, when you're watching TV, when you're reading, when you're in the newspaper, what do you allow in your space? You know, and that's all up to each of us. But the thing is, one person can change the world. You know, I did a TV series years ago on Moses and how one person changed the whole of Egypt. And you are here too. So you catch yourself when you're getting worked up, and then you can say, and shift back by saying, do I feel good right now? Do I feel good right now? I want to read a scripture that I think I've got it back in my notes, but years ago, people would ask me, let me see if I have it in here. No, I put it in here somewhere. People would ask me, how do you know if it's God or not? I used to go to different churches and speak, and they'd say, you know, how do you know if it's God? And at that time I was talking about positive things. You know, they were talking about the tribulation and, you know, the millennia and how all the things in Revelation were going to happen. And I was saying, no, we live in the greatest time in the history of humanity. I have this, you know, code in the Bible, the third and seventh day, that all the miracles happened on, and you're living in that day. Everything that Yeshua did was either on the third and seventh day. He healed the blind, cured the crazy, whatever it was, he healed on those days. You're living in those days. He came out of the tomb on the third day, power over death on the third day. He transmuted his body, went into different bodies. They never recognized him after. We are living in those days. So people didn't want to hear that at that time. They wanted to hear all of those negative things. But we are living in the greatest time that humanity has ever seen. And it says this. I want to read this scripture to you. How do you know if what you're hearing is God? How does it make you feel inside? And this is what it says. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, just, pure, lovely, things are of good report. These, if it has any virtue, if there be any promise, think on these things. So what is it telling us? This is a 2,000-year-old scripture. And what it's telling us is concentrate on those positive, pure, loving things. Because when we do anything that has virtue, we're empowering it. I mean, that's an alchemical key to the transformation within our bodies that was written in that book thousands and thousands of years ago. So when we're feeling good, we become a force that can transcend and convert lower energies. How many of you can walk into a room and transmute that energy of the room as you walk in, just by your presence, just by your love? Mm-hmm. You know, people come in here and say they feel that unconditional love in here. How many people can feel that from you? The way you talk, the energy of your voice, that you can transmute the energy of a room. That's what all of us are here to do. You know, all of the great masters drew people to them because they had that sacred energy. So think of yourself as a powerful transformation station. How about when those negative energies come in, the media things come in, that you transmute them and you change them. Even bad news, instantly remind yourself that you refuse to be a vibrational match, that anything that's uninspiring. What if you did that? When you begin to hear those things, say, I just refuse to be a vibrational match for anything that doesn't make me feel good, for anything that's uninspiring in my life. And I'm going to place my attention back on something that's really powerful. So you can be informed and stay inspired, but not accepted. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to read a letter that was in Wayne Dyer's book from Ram Dass. How many of you know how Ram Dass is? Well, there was a family, and the family had a girl that was brutally killed. And I just wanted to read how he wrote this letter and how awesome it was, how he turned it around to be so inspiring. And that's what we are. We are transmutation systems. We are places where that energy can come in and we transmute it to higher energy and come back to people with that higher perspective of what's going on. So let me just read this letter. So this girl was brutally murdered. But it says, even in such horrific circumstances, Ram Dass was able to provide inspiration. I reproduced this moving letter with Ram Dass' permission in order to help you see how it is possible to transcend violence with inspiring spiritual energy. Dear Steve and Anita, Rachel finished her work on earth and left the stage in a manner that leaves those of us behind with a cry of agony in our hearts, as the fragile thread of our faith is dealt with so violently. Is anyone strong enough to stay conscious through such teachings as you are receiving? Probably very few, and even they would only have a whisper and a peace amidst the screaming trumpets of their rage, grief, horror, and desolation. I can't assert your pain with any words, nor shall I, for your pain is Rachel's legacy to you. Not that she or I would inflict such pain by choice, but there it is. And it must burn its purifying way to completion. Now, that's really something. It must burn its purifying way to completion. You know, I've always said, what's happening in the world is like a boil that's coming up. You know, we're seeing it, but until that boil pops, there's no healing. And that's really where we are right now. We are on the precipice of all of those things that are built on sandy ground to come to the surface. For something in you dies when you bear the unbearable, and it is only in that dark night of the soul that you are prepared to see as God sees, and to love as God loves. Now's the time to let your grief find expression, no false strength. Now's the time to sit quietly and speak to Rachel. Thank her for being with you those few years, and encourage her to go on with whatever her work is, knowing that you will grow in compassion and wisdom from this experience. In my heart, I know that you and she will meet again and again, and recognize the many ways in which you have known each other. And when you meet, you will know in a flash what now is not given to you to know, why this had to be the way it was. Our rational minds can never understand what has happened, but in our hearts, if we keep them open to God, we'll find their own intuitive way. Rachel came through you to do her work on earth, which includes her manner of death. Now her soul is free, and the love that you can share with her is invaluable to the winds of change, time and space, and that deep love, including me, and love, Ram Dass. What a letter. How would you write to somebody that has been through something like that? You know, sometimes we think we have to go down into the pain to cure it, but we don't have to go into hatred to cure hatred. We don't have to go into pain to cure pain. What we're really being called to do is transmute those things, to see them from a higher dimension, to bring them in and transmute them, and then to put our energy on those things that are taking us into the new earth. You know, you live in an auspicious time, a time like no other on the earth, and you were the ones that said, yeah, send me. I'll come. I'll come in one of the greatest transitions that the earth has ever seen. You know, John said this. John said, I must decrease that he increase. And it's the consciousness of the Christ. What's happening is they lived At the same time, for a while, till John's head got cut off, which is that old consciousness. And that's what's happening. We're watching that old consciousness be cut off right now. That negative news, that negative media, we're watching that being dismantled. And we're the ones that are dismantling it. If we can shift, and begin to see it from a higher dimension, if we can shift like Ram Dass and see that even in the most tragic things that are happening, this floods, where we want to help people and we should be sending money, we want to say a prayer for them, but even in this, there's a purpose and life for it. And that's the whole thing, if we can see it, that there's a purpose in everything in your life. And that's what I want to just come down today, all of us. And I know many of you sitting in this room because you've talked to me, all of us are going through things right now because we're being loosened from those things that don't serve us. You know, it says this, yet once more will I shake the earth. And not only shake the earth, but shake heaven too. Because everything that is not God is being shaken away from us. Everything that doesn't serve our life, everything that doesn't help our growth, everything that isn't part of our plan, but was a teaching tool, is being taken away, that we can really be in where we should be today. And what you're here, you're in the school of growth right here, this planet. Mother Earth has said, yes, I'll let you come and learn and practice. I'm going to be the trellis that you can use your discipleship on. Begin to discipline yourself, that you can really be inspired and really live in that place of inspiration all the time. What if every word that came out of your mouth when you spoke to somebody was an encouragement, a support, that spoke deep within them and shifted their consciousness? What if everything the light that you were, changed everything around you, transmuted it? That's where we're going. All those things Miles was talking about last week, those fabulous things of, how about no hospitals? Can you imagine? How many of you love to go into hospitals? Just love it. Just love the energy of a hospital. No, I don't like it. You know, you sing the silent prayers, you walk down, everybody, what if they were all gone? You know, it says in the Bible, it says, I make gardens, I'm going to make deserts bloom. What's blooming are the hospitals, the funeral homes, the places we can't grow. Those are the deserts that's blooming. Those desert places that have not held life, not held divine life. And we're here as that fertilizer. We're here to put our attention on those things that need to grow and need to come in for this new earth to be real. And you're the ones. Nobody's going to do it but us. I love that. We're the ones we've always been waiting for. We're the ones. And we're the ones that can really do it. So I thought today, I just wanted to talk about the media a little bit and show us that if we get on, we can find out that the world is getting better all the time. And that things are happening all the time to change life as it is. But I tell you what, we have to have open hands right now to just release. Just release what doesn't serve us. Because another thing I really feel is, and Roger and I have talked about this, sometimes we think it's free will. And sometimes we think we're just, doing these things out of free will. And sometimes I think our soul plugs us into something and carries us right through it. Sometimes we don't even know how we got through it. Sometimes we don't know what motivated us to get through it. But I think our soul has plugged into these higher dimensions and is taking us on the paths that are really leading us to growth. So wherever you are right now, the most important thing to know is that you live in a safe universe. The most important thing to know is that you are being carried and guided, and that your soul marked this path out before you even came this time. Ever recognize somebody? You meet them for the first time and you have this recognition. It's like I said about Pam. I recognized her. Little did I know we'd worked together for 30 years, but I recognized her. I knew I was going to work with Pam. I knew Nana. When I saw that bowl on her head in the middle of that circle, I said, I know I was going to work with Nana. You have this recognition because our soul lets us know. They come in at the perfect moment in our lives to fulfill our destiny. And you are that moment for other people too when you come into their lives. So I just wanted to say, let's take this illusion that's being fed to us by the media. And let's let's just wipe it aside and let's go higher up and be able to see that no matter what's happening in our world right now, it's happening for a divine purpose, and it's all good. You know, darkness is only absence of light. It can't be measured. The only thing that can be measured is light. Darkness always overcomes the light. And that's our lesson every morning. That sun comes up, and it overcomes that darkness. And it's that cycle that we're in right now. And you and I are the light that's dawning. Yeshua said, I am the light of the world. Now he said, you are the light of the world. So I just encourage all of us to know that what we put our attention on is important. And just by shifting our attention, we shift our planet. We shift our world. We shift our life. We shift our family. We shift everything. So I just encourage all of you to understand that and to know that we live in a phenomenal world. And things are getting better and people are waking up. We've been to Europe. Sharon and I have been to Europe and Machu Picchu. People are waking up all over the world. They're flowing into sacred places all over the world because they're being called to be on that sacred ground and to feel those energies, which are life-altering. So I just encourage you, listen to your heart. To live in spirit, it's when you live in your heart. Listen to your heart. And then know that those two voices in you are that head that tries to drown out the heart. But the heart is the one that always wins. So I just encourage you and honor each and every one of you because you're the ones. You're the ones that are changing our world. You're the ones. So I just honor you and thank you and say the world is better all the time. And so it is. Anybody want to add anything to that? Yes, Paul.
I just want to read this.
Go right ahead.
Here. I accept the goodness of the universe and lovingly share this revelation.
Beautiful. Judy.
2 years ago, I started a network called the Good News Network, and anyone is welcome to take that over. And it's online, you know, I was going to create this new network. Just good news.
Well, there are magazines. I've gotten magazines out there that are all about good news now, too. So there are choices that we can make. That's the wonderful part about it. Anybody else have anything?
I have something.
Yes.
I have a girlfriend that lives in Victoria, Texas, where the flood is, and she says something remarkable is happening there. A lot of animals are being rescued, and so people are coming to the aid of the animals that can't help themselves. You know, because the families are all getting together, but what about the animals? So there's still some good things, you know.
Right, right. Stop.
I also have a friend that lives right in Houston, and he says that on one hand it's much worse than what's portrayed on the media, and on the other hand it's much better, because people are coming together, and one that has is giving to those that don't.
Yeah.
Even on his street, there's people on the same street that their home is completely flooded out, but there are other homes that are perfectly fine, and they're all cooperating with one another. And he works at the port in Houston, and they will be getting the port back up and operating. He was designated to be one of the first people into the port, and you know, things are looking like they're going to recover just fine. Not that it isn't a terrible thing, but the people there are experiencing this
Brotherhood, they're helping.
brotherhood, this sense of community that they wouldn't have had without the.
I'm going to share something I've shared many times, and probably many of you have heard of it. You know, every physical thing is giving us a spiritual lesson. Everything in your life is giving you a spiritual, it's a spiritual lesson. And when the Twin Towers came down, I asked, what was that a picture of? I asked Spirit, what was that a picture of? Spirit said to me, what were they called? And I said, the Trade Center. He said, that's what the church has been for the last 2,000 years, the Trade Center. What did you see when the buildings came down? I said, I saw Democrats, Republicans, black, whites. They were holding hands on the step of the Capitol and singing God Bless America. He said, that's what you're going to see in this time. Those were a picture of the last 2,000 years of the church coming down. And what's being built in its place? One building called the Freedom Center. And that's exactly, I mean, if you ask, what is a storm? What's the lesson in the storm for us? There's always a lesson. There's always a big, huge key for us in our own growth and, you know, the evolution of humanity. So that, we see that, you know, we see that brotherhood, we see the good of man coming through. Yeah, anybody else? Yeah.
It says why it has to happen something bad like the flood in order for people to help each other.
Because sometimes it takes it to shake you up. I mean,
Yeah.
how many times are you
But
complacent?
you
Oh,
call,
they can
but
take
wait a minute,
care
now,
of it.
you're calling it bad. And
Yeah,
we know it's
it's a judgment.
devastating, we know it's devastating
Yeah.
to people, just like this girl's death. But what if those people chose before they came here to go through that flood to teach humanity something? What if the people in 9/11 said, yes, we'll give up our lives? Or the babies that die at birth, they come to teach a parent a lesson. You know, I think about Patty and her baby. You know, there's something bigger. When we look with these two eyes, you know, Jesus said this, if you have eyes to see. And he wasn't talking about physical eyes.
No.
He said, if you can see past the illusion, you're going to see something greater going on here. And that's what we're doing, if we can see past the illusion. Sharon, did you want to say something?
Well, I mean, I agree with that aspect. I've been watching some of this in the news through spiritual eyes. And as much as civil unrest as we've been seeing of discord and separation, violence, you know, all this man against man, race against race. And then here we have a big situation which, the way I see it when I put things together, it's almost like we need something big to get everybody's attention.
Mhm.
And what we're seeing is humanity. There's no divisions. It's all coming together
We
as
need each
oneness.
other.
We need each other. I felt the same way about the animals, people coming across state lines with their boats. I mean, these are people getting out, not just first responders, but this is just the average human being finding a compassion in their heart. But the bigger lesson is they're showing the rest of us that kind of compassion that we need to have for forgiveness. They don't stop to ask when they're putting someone in their boat, you know, what is your
Political affiliation,
political-
yeah.
Yeah,
Which side do you roll
Yeah,
from?
Yeah.
they don't care
No,
about
you're a
the
human
color.
being.
And even our president yesterday went in hands-on to deliver supplies, to get with, you know, the children, all children were coming up, all colors, you know, he's interacting and sharing food and whatnot. But that's a big lesson too, is how do we see things, or do we,
That's exactly right.
does our
there.
judgment, you know, and our egoic mind and our judgment run people and run us? So where our thoughts go, our energy follows.
That's exactly right.
And right now, hopefully, this is a healing that we're actually seeing.
And what if we spoke about that with each other instead of
Right.
saying how devastating it was? What if we
Right.
keep talking about the good
That's
things
right.
that are happening in that flood?
And focus on the healing
Could
that's
that
going
turn
to
that
happen.
whole thing around?
Because it is a part of a healing. I mean, I
Absolutely.
can see it.
I agree with you. Karen?
I have a friend of mine who lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, and she's been working on the Red Cross funds just to take donations and everything. And one of our mutual friends, a good friend of hers, is the head of the region. So they're just taking intake for donations and what can I do, and people are telling their stories to her, you know, about, you know, I don't feel like I can do anything from this distance. And so she said, what would you say? And I said, well, you know, here's the challenge, is that, you know, people want to send things that may not be of use now. You know, like in that Sandy Hook crisis, for example.
Right.
Hundreds, like thousands of teddy bears were sent, but it was not valuable, you know.
Right.
So sometimes the best thing we do is, one, find a place where we can donate money that will be used properly. So you need to do
Exactly.
your research.
Right.
And the other thing I said, and I've said this so many times before, it's like, you know, maybe you can't get in your car and go to Houston, you can't take your boat there, but you could just ask your neighbor next door, can I help you paint your fence? Like, when's the last time you even said hello?
Beautiful,
Or
Sharon.
when's the
Yeah.
last time that you were kind to somebody you don't like? You know, we don't have to like everybody. There's nothing in the Bible anywhere
That's a general.
that
so
says you
right.
have to like people.
You're so
only
right.
that we love each other.
Yeah.
So, you know, just do a little thing for the guy next door, or
That's
the lady
right.
in the grocery that's checking you out, make her have a smile that day. That changes,
You're so right.
changes the dynamic. It's like the butterfly effect. It changes everything.
You're so
And
right.
you don't have to send $1 million and you don't have to go there. Sometimes if you go there, you're just in the way. That's, you know, unless you know what you're doing.
Right.
So do little things, because those little things add up to huge things.
That's so beautiful. And I read a quote lately that was saying, you know, what we get hooked in is that we got to do all these big things. Well, what if we did little things with our heart full of love and with all of our energy? They would turn into big things.
Yeah, if every
Exactly,
single
Karen.
person did a little thing, that would be a huge thing.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I love about Wayne Dyer, he said every morning he would either give something away or do something for somebody. You know, he would, you know, whether it was whoever it was, the boy that did the pool, his condo, whatever it was, but what if we started the day off thinking about somebody else? You know, we're the ones that gotta make a change, you know. And I'm as guilty too. I want to get all the information into me. I want to meditate. I want to do everything so I can feel good. But what can we do to make somebody else feel good? Just a minute. Larry had his hand up. Go ahead, Larry.
So I think an important concept to keep in mind is that the only meaning that things have is the meaning that we
Yes.
assign to them.
Absolutely. Great.
So,
Great.
you know, this whole media thing, I agree with everything
Yeah.
Sharon said too, by the way. That's, you know, really good. And with your theme of the media, you know, you can't be, you know, in ignorant bliss. You've got to,
Right.
you got to know kind of what's going on around
Right.
around you. But one of the things that the media does that's so dangerous is that they cause people to think in certain ways.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about.
And they take away people's ability to discern things and make their own decisions, and you get this group mentality, and it, you know, it goes from group think to group actions when you see all these crazy things that are happening with the protests and, you know, burning
Right.
buildings and all this nonsense. So you just have to, you got to really be able to separate yourself from that. You know, obviously, you know, I mean, I've kind of shut off all of it, except other than I'll read a few headlines 2 or 3 times a day, literally for like 15 seconds. I scan the headlines, and okay, I see what's going on. Beyond that, if there's anything I need to know about, I'm sure I'll hear about it somewhere. But you just got to be able to maintain your own thoughts and your own
Because if
beliefs.
we get into that sadness and we get into that negativity,
Right.
we can't change anything when
Right.
we're down there.
You just
You
get-
can't go down with somebody else, right?
Right, you gotta
Yeah.
rise above it.
Yeah, beautiful, Larry. What do you want to say, Roger?
I just wanted to second the motion. The universe gives freely to me, and I give freely to the universe. And I can't outgive the giver.
That's so true.
beautiful.
But do we even believe that? You know, what do you think money's here for? It's a tool, it's a piece of paper, it's an energy that we're learning to use. It's a tool for ascension. It's a tool to let go. It's a tool. And how many of us, you gotta go like this to get it out of somebody's hand, you know? I love what Miles said, what? Reach into your neighbor's pocket and get the, get the offering. I wanna do that next week. Everybody has their right pocket full. We'll do that next week. Anybody else? Somebody else said something. Larry.
Okay, while we're on the subject of giving, I missed it last November, but I'm throwing this out early. We do an annual collection for turkeys and for hams for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I'm not asking you now, but I'm telling you while you're all in the mood. Keep this in mind when I open that donation drive. We, in 1 year, gave over 60 hams and turkeys. Last year I was sick, I wasn't able to do it, but I'm back in the saddle again. So just be prepared, thank you.
There's in the
I was
house.
thinking of today, what if we took up an offering today? I just put a basket over there, and if you want to give something to the flood victims, you know, we've given to the doctors that go on ships to help them before, which I think is a really good cause. I've looked into that. The doctors that give their time to go and help those victims, that was something that the money went to those ships.
Directly.
So if we put a basket back there and you want to give something, we might collect for a couple of weeks and then send it to something like that we researched and know that it's going to go. And that's the thing too, you don't know anymore. Those are the things you don't know where the money goes.
Which
But
is
They
sad.
do have it though,
The
they
Red
have it
Cross
listed,
is
the
pretty
ones
good.
that it goes
Yeah.
directly to. And
Yeah.
and especially the animals too, don't forget the animals.
Yeah. Anybody, yeah, Scott?
And if you have any people that actually live in the area there, they can tell you, the friend that I have, the friend that's in Houston and I have a mutual friend that we went to high school with, that he's a disaster relief guy, that's just what he does. He's very religious, but, you know, he has equipment and everything like that.
But he's still nice.
He's already there with his equipment and, you know, the food
Right.
things and the shower things and everything like that. And he has a church that's a regular church that he's working with there. So Bobby said, you know, hey, if you really want somebody, you know, donate to the church because we know it's going right here, right
So
where
that
it's
you're saying that's another avenue.
rather
Yeah.
than the Red Cross or something
Right.
like that.
Did it go
that's,
through
you
so
know,
many channels?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
and
put the basket
overhead
up
and
here,
everything like that.
or maybe on that chair, and
Can
we'll
I
just,
say one thing about the
Sure.
Red Cross though? I mean,
Yeah.
if you don't wanna send money, go donate blood, because they're gonna need a lot of blood.
That's a
Because
great
their
thing
blood
to do.
banks,
Yeah,
all that
advertise that
stuff,
on the
people who
radio.
normally donate aren't gonna be doing that.
right.
So if you wanna do something that's really tangible, blood is a really
That's a
good
great
thing.
idea, Karen.
I
Yes.
know you want to wrap it up. I just wanted to address, I don't know what that wonderful lady's name is, about, you know, all these different things happening, you know, and to me, I think that, in my opinion, the speeding up of all these disasters, if you want to label or judge, tomato, tomato, I think it's going to continue until we finally get the lesson, let's do it daily. Let's not wait for the next disaster.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's
Like
what I
Karen
would
was
bring
saying.
to
Compares for Indians.
worrying about, oh my gosh,
Absolutely.
you know, it just keeps snowballing, we're getting worse and worse, and all these disasters are happening almost daily all over the world. Well, yeah, let's wake up and actually do something on a regular basis.
And you know what I was thinking when you were saying that? What if we kept telling our friends the good news?
Yes!
Instead of
On
saying
a
how-
daily
on a
basis.
daily basis, well, you should hear what people are doing in Houston or wherever it is. For the flood, I heard that his friend took all his equipment down there, you know.
And make
what
it
if we start-
positive, and
yeah.
make that the focus, and that's the
Exactly.
light working that I think you were mentioning before.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything they wanna, you know what, I wanna honor all of you. I wanna honor each and every one of you. I mean, I have so much love for all of you because I know you're the ones that are making a difference. And to come here, this little place, and listen to me, or listen to Miles, or listen to whoever's up here, I just honor you because you are the ones that are making the change, and we can make a difference. Can we love each other? You know, that's the first thing. Can we love each other in here? Support each other. You know, Judy said something to me today, I don't know where she went, but she said, you know, I've cried here a few times, there she is, but you know why I've cried? Because I feel safe here. I couldn't cry for a year, but when I came here and I felt loved, I could cry. And I thought, you know, that is such a privilege to say that you guys love somebody, that they could open their chakras and really, you know, feel. Because a lot of times we turn our feelings down just to survive. You know, but if you have a place where you can come and really be loved, it's so different. So I just honor all of you, and I just know you're going to be spreading the good news this week. Namaste.
And we honor you for making it.
In their rooms. You don't want to see people suffer. I used to go to all children's. You don't want to see those things.